I was my family's ATM until I lost my job. Now they don't even call me anymore. There was a time when my phone never stopped ringing. Every vibration, every chime of an incoming call, every message notification was a summons. My family, my blood, reached out to me as if they cared, as if my existence was essential to them. But I know now, with a gut-wrenching clarity, that I was never their son, their brother, their cousin, or their nephew. I was nothing more than a walking, talking bank account. The one who made things happen, the one who fixed every financial disaster they created, the one who never said no. It's ironic how money can forge relationships tighter than love ever could. When I had it, I was adored, respected, cherished, or so I believed. When it disappeared, so did they. Every single one of them. I remember the first time I ever felt the weight of responsibility settle onto my shoulders. I was barely 21, fresh into my first job, still learning how to balance my own expenses when my mother called me, her voice thick with distress. "Baby, I don't want to worry you, but the power company is threatening to shut off my electricity." A pause. A calculated silence, just long enough for the guilt to settle in my chest like an anchor. I barely had enough to get through the month myself, but the thought of my mother sitting in the dark, alone, made the decision for me. I sent the money immediately. And that was the first brick laid in the foundation of my servitude. From that moment, it never stopped. My younger brother needed money for his car repairs. My aunt had fallen behind on rent. My cousin was drowning in credit card debt. My father, who had barely been in my life growing up, suddenly remembered I existed whenever he needed cash to cover his gambling losses. It was always a crisis, always an emergency, always an urgent, desperate situation that only I could fix. And I did. Again and again. At first, I convinced myself it was love. That's what family does, right? We take care of each other. But the pattern was undeniable. They never called just to check in, to ask about my day, to celebrate my promotions, to see if I was happy. The moment the money left my hands, the conversations ended. The warmth in their voices evaporated. And then came the day everything changed. I lost my job. It wasn't immediate destruction. It was a slow, creeping downfall. A corporate downsizing. A polite but final notice that my position was no longer needed. At first, I told myself I'd bounce back quickly. I had savings. I had experience. I had skills. But weeks turned into months, and the job market was unforgiving. Interviews led to rejections. My bank balance withered. The money I had so freely handed out, the lifeline I had been to my family, was gone. And with it, so were they. The phone that once rang incessantly became eerily silent. No one checked on me. No one asked how I was coping. The absence was louder than any confrontation could have been. I experimented, just to see. I texted my brother, asking for a small loan, nothing more than what I had given him countless times before. His response was delayed, hesitant. "Man, I wish I could help, but things are tight right now." That was the first crack in the illusion. I reached out to my mother next. I told her about my struggles, about how I was barely making rent. Her response was a weak, half-hearted sigh. "I'm sorry, baby. If I had anything to spare, you know I would." But I knew the truth. The same way I had once rushed to rescue them, they could have done the same for me. If they cared, if I had ever been anything more than a source of money to them. I tried to believe that maybe they just didn't understand how bad things were for me. Maybe they assumed I was fine. Maybe they thought I'd get back on my feet soon enough, and they didn't need to worry. So I decided to test them one last time. I faked an eviction notice. I crafted a desperate message, told them I had nowhere else to turn. No one responded. Not my mother, not my brother, not the aunts and uncles whose rent I had paid, not the cousins who had taken my money with eager hands and grateful smiles. That was the moment the final illusion shattered. I wasn't their family. I was their provider. And now that I was of no use to them, I didn't exist. I won't lie. There were nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the betrayal burning in my chest like acid. I had sacrificed so much for them. I had put my own dreams on hold, lived frugally so they could live comfortably, made decisions that benefited them more than they ever benefited me. And now, left with nothing, I realized the devastating truth. I had been used. The anger didn't come all at once. It simmered, slow and steady, building beneath the surface. But when it finally reached its peak, it was scorching. They had abandoned me, and I would make sure they felt the consequences. Because here's the thing about life. Nothing stays the same forever. The tides turn, fortunes shift, and I had every intention of rising again. But this time, when I did, things would be different. Silence has a way of speaking louder than words. Before, my days had been filled with constant noise, the beeping of my phone, the endless stream of requests disguised as conversations, the fake warmth of people who only saw me as a means to an end. But now, my phone sat untouched, its screen dark and unbothered. The people who once swarmed me like vultures around a fresh kill had moved on to their next meal, leaving me with nothing but the hollow weight of realization. I wasn't surprised anymore. No, that feeling had passed. Shock had turned to disappointment, which had curdled into something uglier, something sharper, an anger so deep it felt like molten steel running through my veins. I should have seen this coming. The signs had always been there. The way my mother's voice only softened when she needed something. The way my brother only remembered I existed when his bank account was dry. The way my father, who had barely been more than a ghost in my life, only showed up when he had debts to clear. I had been a fool, willingly walking into a trap, blinded by the naive belief that family meant something more than transactions. And now, with nothing left to give, I was nothing to them. Fine. Let them forget me. Let them erase my number from their contacts. Let them pretend I never existed. But I made a promise to myself that night, staring at the ceiling of my near-empty apartment, my stomach hollow from both hunger and the weight of betrayal. I would rise again, and when I did, they would not be welcomed back with open arms. They would beg, just as I had begged, and I would watch them drown. Unemployment is a slow, suffocating death. It creeps in, tightening its grip with every rejected application, every unanswered email, every interview that ends with the same empty reassurance. We'll be in touch. I sold everything that wasn't essential. The expensive watch I had bought to impress clients? Gone. The sleek leather couch I had once been so proud of, sold for a fraction of what I had paid. The suits, the shoes, the luxuries I had indulged in during my years of financial stability. All of it stripped away, piece by piece, until I was left with nothing but the bare minimum. The fridge became emptier with each passing day. Ramen noodles and canned beans replaced the expensive takeout meals I once treated myself to, without a second thought. The landlord's patience thinned, his knocks on my door becoming more insistent, and still, not a single call from my family. I tested them one last time, even though I already knew the answer. I called my mother, my voice careful, controlled. "Hey, Mom." A pause. A hesitation, just a fraction too long before she responded. "Oh, hey baby, how are you?" She didn't ask where I'd been, didn't ask why I hadn't called, because she already knew, because they all knew, and they didn't care. I swallowed the bitterness in my throat and forced the words out. I was wondering, could you help me out a little, just until I get back on my feet? Silence. A cold, suffocating silence that stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. But then she exhaled, the sound heavy with forced regret. "Oh, sweetheart, you know I would if I could, but things have been tight for me too." Tight. The same woman whose electricity I had paid more times than I could count. The same woman who had cried to me about overdue bills while I drained my savings to make sure she never had to worry. The same woman who had treated my generosity like an obligation, now suddenly had nothing to spare. I let out a slow breath, my grip on the phone tightening. "I understand," I said, my voice void of emotion. And I did, more than ever. I hung up before she could spew more lies. That was the moment I let go of the last shred of hope that they would prove me wrong. They never would. Rock bottom is an interesting place. It strips you bare, forces you to see things with a clarity that luxury and comfort never allow. And in that darkness, I found something unexpected. Freedom. For the first time in years, I had nothing to lose, no one to support, no one to answer to. I wasn't their provider anymore, which meant I didn't have to be their puppet either. The realization burned away the last remnants of guilt, leaving something colder in its place. I focused on one thing, getting back on my feet. But not for them. Never for them. I worked any job I could find, things I would have once turned my nose up at. Warehouse shifts, late-night security gigs, grueling manual labor that left my body aching and my mind numb. I kept my head down, saving every penny, refusing to spend more than what was absolutely necessary. And slowly, painfully, things began to change. The bank account that had been suffocatingly empty started to grow again. The crushing weight of debt lessened. The desperation that had once clung to me like a second skin faded, replaced by something else. Determination. I networked, reached out to old colleagues, played the game with a new kind of ruthlessness. And when the right opportunity finally came, I seized it with both hands. A new job, a better job, one that paid more than the last, one that put me in a position of power rather than servitude. I rebuilt my life from the ashes they had left me in, and this time I made sure the foundation was unshakable. And then, just like clockwork, the call started again. It started small, a casual message from my cousin. "Hey man, long time no talk. How have you been?" I stared at the screen, my lips curling into something that wasn't quite a smile. Then my brother reached out. "Yo, you good? Haven't heard from you in a while." The audacity. And finally, the one I had been waiting for. My mother. "Hey sweetheart, I miss you. Call me when you get the chance." I let the messages pile up, unread, unanswered. Let them feel what I had felt. Let them sit in the same silence they had left me in. The phone continued to ring. The unread messages stacked higher, but I felt nothing. No guilt, no regret, no urge to respond. They had abandoned me when I needed them most. And now that I had risen from the ruins, they wanted access to me again. But I was no longer the man they had once known. I let them wait. Days passed, then weeks. The frequency of their attempts increased. My mother left voicemail after voicemail, her tone growing more desperate with each one. "Baby, I just want to hear your voice. I miss you, sweetheart. Please call me." The same woman who couldn't spare a dime when I was drowning. My brother, once too busy to return a simple text, suddenly had time for me again. "Bro, I know things were rough for a while, but we should catch up. Family is family, man. Family." Funny how that word only seemed to matter when there was something to gain. I ignored them all. But they weren't done with me yet. It was a Sunday afternoon when the knock came at my door. Slow, deliberate. A sound I hadn't heard in what felt like a lifetime. I already knew who it was before I even looked through the peephole. My mother stood there, her face aged by stress and worry, her eyes scanning the door as if hoping I would already be standing on the other side. Behind her was my brother, hands shoved into his pockets, shifting his weight from foot to foot like a guilty child caught in a lie. For a moment I considered ignoring them. Let them knock. Let them stand there just as I had sat waiting for a call that never came. But no, that wasn't enough. I opened the door. "Wow," my mother breathed, taking a step back as if seeing me for the first time. "You look good." I did, dressed in a crisp button-down, standing in the doorway of an apartment that spoke of success and stability. I was no longer the desperate, broken man they had discarded. I had rebuilt myself from nothing, and I knew they could see it. My brother cleared his throat. "Can we come in?" I leaned against the doorframe, making no move to step aside. "Why are you here?" A flicker of something crossed my mother's face. Hurt, maybe, or just the frustration of being denied access. "Honey, we're family. We just want to talk." I almost laughed. "Family?" I repeated, the word foreign in my mouth. "That's funny. Because I remember calling my family when I was struggling. I remember begging for help. And you know what I got? Silence. They didn't speak. They had nothing to say. Because they knew the truth. I got excuses," I continued, my voice colder than it had ever been. I got empty words. I got abandoned. And now, suddenly, I matter again? Now that I'm back on my feet? My mother shook her head, reaching for me, but I stepped back. "It wasn't like that," she insisted. We thought you needed space. We didn't know it was that bad." The lie was so weak it was almost insulting. I turned my gaze to my brother, waiting to see if he would offer anything different. He shifted uncomfortably. Look, man, we messed up. I get it, but we're here now. I let the words sit between us, watching them squirm under the weight of their own guilt. Then I spoke, my voice even, unwavering. I needed you when I had nothing, I said, and you weren't there. But now you need me, and you expect me to open my arms, pretend none of it happened, and start handing things out again? My mother flinched. We're not asking for money. She was lying. I could see it in the way she avoided my eyes. I had known her long enough to recognize when she was dancing around the truth. I smiled, a slow, knowing smile. You don't have to. For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of my words hung heavy in the air, suffocating the illusion they had come here to build. Finally, my brother sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. So, that's it then? You're just cutting us off? I tilted my head. What did you expect? Neither of them had an answer, and that was all I needed to know. They left eventually, not with slamming doors or screaming matches, just a quiet, heavy understanding that the game was over. I watched from the window as they walked away. My mother's shoulders slumped, my brother muttering something under his breath. For a brief moment, I wondered if they regretted it, if they looked back at the years of my generosity and realized what they had lost. But it didn't matter anymore. I closed the door. I had spent years being my family's ATM, a resource to be drained, a safety net they never appreciated. I had given them everything, and in return, they had given me nothing but silence when I needed them most.